The Ric Flair Show.
My name's Ric Flair.
Woo! Woo! To be the man, you gotta beat the man. And I'm saying, woo! Right here, I'm the man.
The 16-time world champion.
Woo! Back behind the mic and telling it like it is.
Woo!
If you're not carrying the big gold, you're second best no matter what you tell yourself.
I'm the best.
Y'all playing catch-up ball to the Nature Boy.
And now, your hosts of The Ric Flair Show, Ric Flair and Conrad Thompson.
Woo!
Hey, it's Conrad Thompson, and you're listening to The Ric Flair Show. Unfortunately, today, the Nature Boy is under the weather. If you've been keeping up with his schedule online or just listened to last week's show, you know that he was across the pond at the Wales Comic Con over the weekend. And while he was there, he contracted food poisoning. So the Nate has not been well. He hasn't eaten since Sunday. And with food poisoning, you can pretty much imagine everything else. And that happened on a plane on the ride home, and now ever since, he is at home in Atlanta, Georgia, resting easy. But today, he does not feel like styling and profiling. So we're going to do a little bit of a best of. And what we're going to do today is patch together our Shawn Michaels interview. Early in this podcast run, we had a part 1 and a part 2. We're going to put those together to make it one sit-down interview, and this is going to be kind of the best of the Ric Flair Show with the entire uninterrupted Shawn Michaels interview. Of course, everybody knows their history. Really, really good friends, and ultimately, Shawn is the guy who ended Ric's WWE career back in 2008 at WrestleMania 24. But we don't want the winning to end for our listeners. Last week, we gave away a copy of WWE 2K17 for the Xbox, and this week, we said we were going to announce another contest, and here it is. We're giving away a copy of the 1991-1992 WCW World Heavyweight Championship. You may remember when Ric Flair left the promotion and went to the WWF, he took the big gold belt with him. So WCW wound up scrambling. They had a little bit of a placeholder with an old Dusty Rhodes belt when Barry Windham was defeated by Lex Luger at the Great American Bash in 1991. But they had already ordered the new world title from Reggie Parks. It's a classic design, and it's the belt that you remember Vader holding in WCW. Sting would hold it, Lex Luger would hold it, even Ron Simmons would hold it, and then eventually when the Nature Boy returned, he won the world title as well. Rick made this one famous, at least in my eyes, when he beat Vader for it at Starrcade 93. So certainly one of his more iconic matches. Eventually he would unify that belt and the big gold belt into just one title. This is a very rare belt to find. You can't just find this anywhere, and even if you could, without the Nature Boy's autograph, it's everywhere. But we're going to make sure that you have a copy of it, and it's autographed in bold blue Sharpie by the Nature Boy. It's got one of his signature catchphrases on it, and you can see a picture of it. All you need to do is throw us a follow at Ric Flair Show. But now, how do you win this belt? Well, that's simple. All we need you to do is go hit the subscribe button on iTunes. I know some of you guys don't use iPhones. Well, here's the deal. iTunes is a free download online, and I know some of you are going to say it's a hassle. Well, it's supposed to be a hassle. This is a big-time gift. It's an autographed world championship signed by the Nature Boy. Go ahead, subscribe on iTunes to the Ric Flair Show, and then leave us a review. If you will go ahead and post a screenshot to social media, whether it's Facebook or it's Twitter, and just use hashtag Ric Flair Show. If you've got a screenshot showing that you left a review, you're eligible. It really is that simple. We need you to subscribe to the show, go ahead and leave a review, and then just post a screenshot using hashtag Ric Flair Show. And next week, the Nature Boy will be back in business. And here on the Ric Flair Show, we're going to announce a winner, and you're getting a brand new belt. We've given away a big gold belt. We've given away the original NWA Dome Globe belt. We've given away a replica robe. We've given away a video game. And now we're giving away his third world title. When it comes to world titles, Ric Flair only won 2 in WCW. Everything else was either NWA or the WWF. The big gold belt and this belt we're giving away. So if you were a fan of Ric Flair's WCW days, here's your chance to get a rare belt and to get it autographed by Ric Flair. All you need to do, real simple. Let's recap. Subscribe to the show, leave us a review, and then post a screenshot using hashtag Ric Flair Show. It's that simple. Next week, we've got a winner. Next week, the Nate will be back. It'll be a brand new show, and he'll be recovered from campaigning too hard with Waka Flocka Flame and food poisoning in Wales. But enough about next week. This week, we've got the greatest professional wrestlers of all time. Everyone has Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels as number one or number two. No matter who you've got on top, almost universally agreed upon, these are the best two professional wrestlers of all time. And they're going to talk here, uninterrupted, for the very first time ever, in their most in-depth podcast ever. It's Shawn Michaels and Ric Flair from earlier this year on The Ric Flair Show.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, it's Ric Flair with The Ric Flair Show, along with my fantastic co-host, Conrad Thompson. And today, I've got to tell you, I've had some special guests over the last year on the two different podcasts that I've been on now, of course, in a much better place than I was before. But to have this young man, who I'm going to open the conversation by saying is the greatest professional wrestler in the history of the industry. He is the greatest in-ring technician. Ladies and gentlemen, HBK Shawn Michaels. Shawn, thank you so much.
Oh, my goodness.
How about that, man?
Oh, yeah. You laid it on thick there, Nate.
The greatest in-ring performer in the history of the WWE. And I told someone the other day, because I get asked this all the time, my favorite match of yours or that I've ever seen, and I know you've had some great ones, was you and Taker in Atlanta. Yeah. I thought, no, not Atlanta. What year was it?
Oh, no, Houston.
Houston, that's right, because you got inducted in Atlanta. Houston. We inducted Steve, and you had the match with Taker, and then Atlanta is where you got inducted at WrestleMania here. Because I brought you a belt which cost about 1% of what the watch cost, but it was still nice.
It was very nice.
Yeah, it had rubies on it. Not to be confused. Not to be. They fell out. God dang it.
Whatever.
Oh man.
Goes in there with the.
Well, good. Listen, Conrad, you've met Conrad. You probably don't remember. He sat with us in San Jose, and not last year. What mania was that?
Yeah. Oh, I remember.
Yeah, Conrad. Yeah, he's a big time real estate guy. Lives in Huntsville, and he put together a bunch of questions today for me and you. It's kind of how we do it, so I don't have a lot of time to think about it. It's all about our careers, how we felt, how we met. You can tell some stories that before we get off the air today, I got to have you do one Harley race impersonation because nobody can do it like you. Nobody can do it.
Well, the person who did him the best was Kurt Hennig, obviously, and I just stole my act from Hennig and continued it on over the years. So let me just make sure I understand. So basically, you've got this podcast where Conrad interviews you every week. Basically, he's the one that does all the legwork and asks you questions all week, and you just talk like you always have, right?
Yep.
Yeah. That's pretty much it. Yeah, and then we touch what we do, and this is all going to air. It's being taped right now. What we do is talk about current subjects, and our format is where Conrad is because I'm still just really, really barely learning how to send an email,
So Rick has a podcast, but he doesn't know how to listen to the podcast type of guy.
Yes.
Yeah, there you go. That's right. And I actually refuse to change. I'm not going to. I have no desire to become any more technically advanced than I am right now. So
he got a Fitbit.
If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
He got a Fitbit and then took it back to the store when he realized he had to hook it up to a computer. He's that type of guy.
Yeah. I don't even think I took it back to the store. That's the problem.
Well, you know what? I mean, the thing is, you and I are so now. I know, obviously, I'm more advanced than you are. I don't, know as much as some folks, and clearly not as much as Conrad. But I've, come a long way. But at the same time, there's only, I do not sit on my phone or computer all day, and it's just because there's too much other stuff to for me to do right now. And so it's always good to have somebody that can help you keep you abreast of the goings on of not just wrestling, but of pop culture in general. I mean, heck, as you know, I mean, I never knew, I don't know, Jericho and Hunter, used to always make fun of me about the fact that I knew current events news-wise, but as far as Hollywood or the latest music trends and all that kind of stuff, man, had no idea and still don't.
Yeah, well, that's I'm saying too. I get all my scoop from either Wendy or Conrad, and anyway, Conrad, start her out, man. I mean, I looked at the questions, and there's some great ones. Some are about, and one of them, of course, is when you can tell Conrad wants to know how we met, and that's a great story in itself.
Yeah, so Shawn, let's just start with that. Where did you guys first meet? What year was that, and kind of what was the story?
Oh my goodness! Well, it was 1985, and it's funny. I was just telling the story today with a gentleman. Well, you know what? I was told, like, I got to be back, ideally, if I can be back by 5, I got to do Flair's podcast. Of course, kind of like, oh, yeah, you got to tell him, and my son said brother and woo and all that kind of thing. It's like, oh, yes, of course, I'll tell him. But I was telling him it was 1985. I was in Kansas City, working the Central States area. Nate came in, was on top, working. I think we were with Bulldog or Harley Race that night.
I think I worked with Brody that night the first time. Either Brody or Harley, I think. Yeah.
Yeah.
They usually kept Bulldog for Topeka.
Yeah.
Or Hutchinson.
Harley wasn't making that drive. So anyway, but afterwards, everyone would go to this place. I want to say it was like Julie's or something like that, but it was just a small little, nightclub. It wasn't even really a nightclub. It was just a place where there were some pool tables and, and a little bar. The guys used to go there and hang out. And that was actually back when, because I was only 19 at the time. That's back when the drinking age was 18. And I was going up to the bar to order a beer. If an age came up and he said, "What are you having, kid?" And I said, "Just a beer." He goes, "I got it." And so he bought me a beer. And then, of course, I thought, okay, here's my opportunity. I'd watched him for years. And, of course, I just, had to take that moment to let him know, what he meant to me as a wrestler. It's one of those things where you just, you got your one chance to give your 5-minute spiel about, how you think he's just the greatest thing since sliced bread and yada, yada, yada. And all I know is that, thank you very much. And he left. And all I know is that I didn't buy a drink for the rest of the night. But that was the first time that I ever met her. How are you doing, sweetheart? And
that's fabulous. Yeah. Story of my life. Bar tabs everywhere.
And the whole time, you can't see the motion that I'm doing right now with my arm, but the whole time at the bar he was doing that too. He was doing the swimming thing that he does with his arms and
we used to be overseas. We'd be overseas in 6-man tags, Hunter. And Shawn would start the match, and he would come over, swing his arm, tap himself on his shoulder, take my hand and take my 2 fingers and put them on his pulse and then mine, not my forehead. And 20,000 people were dying for it. Are you kidding me? That's what was so ridiculous.
What was funny is every time we worked together, I mean, the first 10 minutes of the match, in live events, if it was me, Hunter, and Rick in any kind of match, a 6-man, in any way, shape, or form, the 3 of us were in there. The first 10 minutes were all of us doing Rick. The various little instinctive things before we ever locked up, pulling on the rope, doing the swimming, at the arms, doing the strut, the woo, the pulling the rope, taking your own pulse, junk like that.
Are you implying that I have idiosyncrasies or tics?
Yeah. You got a bunch of serious tics that half the world don't even know about, man.
I told you this would be a good one, Conrad. So, Conrad, go ahead. You haven't even asked the question yet.
Well, no, I'm having a good time. I think everybody is just listening to you guys. But eventually we're going to talk about your last match together. But let's talk about your first match. Was that back in '91 in the WWF? How did that come about? Because Shawn was in a tag team at the time.
Well, here's I'll tell you. Oh, go ahead. It was in Corpus Christi.
No, I was going to say you'd know. I was going to say I knew where it was, but at that time, that was before I mean, nobody ever told me anything except what to do and go wrestling. So I don't even know. Rick might have better skinny on how I actually.
No, I don't know how it came about either. I just got the TV and they said, "God, you're getting to wrestle Shawn Michaels," and I think it was pretty well. I think that it was pretty well assumed that Shawn was going to be the next big thing in the company at that point already, even though he was still doing some tag matches. I think after that he did the thing with the mirror, where you broke the mirror with Jannetty. Remember that?
And that's the thing. No, I mean, I think because I was still in the tag match, I don't know how much time it was after that.
We had 6 minutes.
That I ever went single. So it was just one of those, honestly, and again, it's one of I know very little about it. It was just one of those, I think, random things to where they wanted the deal, have a decent match, let him work with one of the Rogers. That's, and somebody says, which one? And somebody says, well, let Shawn do it. I mean, I think everybody knew that I was just such a huge fan of Rick. So just to give me the opportunity to be in there with him, I think there's probably somebody in, a booker or a producer or somebody, an agent that knew that and think, Shawn will get a kick out of that opportunity. Go ahead and let him do it. We had 6 minutes, and so there was very little
it was
time.
fine.
You just do the best.
But in that 6 minutes, he did press slam me. He goes, I can't get you up. I said, watch.
Yeah.
I was actually halfway decent at that time still, right? It was just up and down.
Yeah, well, and again, I tell you, it's for me, it's one of those things that again, you don't. Heck, I don't know the future, and so for me, this is a huge opportunity. You're in there with the guy that you always dream about being in there with. It's a huge opportunity, and then gosh, it's the fastest 6 minutes you ever had.
Yeah.
But again, at that time, again, I don't know that you can, people can put it in perspective now because everybody sees everything in the rear view mirror. But at that time, I didn't know what tomorrow held. And so at that particular time in Corpus Christi, Texas, that was about, the greatest night I'd had in my career up to that point.
Well, thank you. You're very nice. I'll tell you, here's the lead into it. And Shawn will remember this. The night before, or day before, we were in New York City, and I was in a China club with all the guys, with the Nasty Boys and all that. And remember, I lost my Rolex.
Oh my goodness!
Yeah, I lost. And
that's the night before we were in Corpus.
Yeah, I wanted to kill Brian Knobs. It was a week where I hadn't seen Brian. I can't remember maybe it was a week later or 3 or 4 days, but I hadn't seen Brian because I said, Brian, please don't tell anybody, And of course, I'm watching the TV in Cincinnati, and he goes, "Hey, Flair, what time is it?" Brian. Jesus, so yeah. So and this is the thing that we can't even. There was not enough time. But to understood how much fun, and really at that point, how much camaraderie, I'm always going to use that word, camaraderie, that the 80s and the 90s had. It's hard to understand because the work schedule was so difficult and so unmanageable and for personal lives, basically, and I'll pretty much stand on that. It was just hard. You were never home, and you had to have friends to hang out. You had to have friends to exist, and I think even though a lot of those friendships don't carry on, Like I think Sean's probably got 5 or 6 guys. I've got 5 or 6 guys. But it's of all the guys you think that we travel with, worked with, and had fun with, they become fewer and far between. And if you didn't have it in that time frame, it's always been my thought process that you wouldn't be able to survive. I mean, you go into your room. We can count the number of guys that went to the room at night, and look what happened. I mean, it's nothing good about that. You've got to be able to laugh and have some fun.
Yeah. Well, again, I mean, it was a different time, and we were working so hard. We were all we had, each other had. So we certainly made the best of it. I don't know that it was, looking back clearly, I can say what might not have been the healthiest thing to do, but but at that time, that's the way it was back then. But again, I mean, I having survived it all, wouldn't change it for the world. So.
Yeah, myself included. I might not have gotten married 4 times, but aside from that, actually, I was retired when I got married twice. So, what a dumbass I am. Excuse me. So,
Sean, I think
Sean was supposed to be in one of the weddings and didn't make it. Now I'm glad you weren't there. Remember, Rebecca couldn't find her passport and you couldn't come, and now I'm glad you weren't there. What a tragedy that was. An expensive tragedy. Well, go ahead, Conrad.
Sean, I think most folks listening to the podcast have seen the old photo where you sort of mimicked Rick's pose from an old Pro Wrestling Illustrated cover.
Oh, yeah.
What was it about Rick that made him special to you as a fan, as a kid?
Well, look, I mean, and it's funny because he was just busting my chops the other day about Tully Blanchard. But I mean, so much of it, and the irony is, I mean, again, all those years later, Tully would go to the Carolinas, become one of the Horsemen. But I mean, it started with Southwest Championship Wrestling. My entire everything with wrestling started with Southwest Championship Wrestling, and this was before cable. So again, to me, this is the only wrestling I was exposed to. And Tully Blanchard was, again, I would later figure out that he was sort of our version of Ric Flair there in South Texas. But then not too long after that, cable comes along, and then, of course, it's WTBS, and you're watching World Championship Wrestling out of Atlanta. And that was, my first exposure to Rick. And then, of course, and he took what I liked so much about Tully, but then it was just so much bigger and so much more. And with the blonde hair, I mean, again, and gosh, Tully talked about the planes and the cars and this, that, and the other, but you never saw him. Gosh, with Rick, you saw him coming off of the Learjet. You saw him walking out of the limousine. He showed you the Rolex. I mean, it was just, all of a sudden, he made this line of work just look like it was the absolute greatest gig in the world. And it just, well, it did. I mean, it just drew me in. It made me fall in love with not just, that character, but the idea of what being a wrestler would be. I mean, I could, again, and there was, as you know, I mean, there were countless other guys that were wrestlers on television, but nobody sort of embodied this fantasy in certainly this 15-year-old kid's head of what the wrestling business could be. And I think that's what made Rick so appealing to me, is that he just made everything about the job so incredibly cool. I mean, I would imagine it's sort of like what people felt like Joe Namath did to being a quarterback way back when, and with his commercials and the women and the this, that, and the other, just made it look like he was the coolest guy in the world. And again, all of that just, it drew me in. And again, and I can remember that time him walking out on WCBS and he had the championship for the first time. I thought, oh my goodness. And because when the way we got it, you would just hear about, these big matches that would happen at the Omni. And of course, back then, championship titles never changed on television. You just, it wasn't. And of course, we never, there wasn't the internet back then. And even if, which I did, even if you subscribed to Wrestling Magazine, none of that stuff, you didn't get that stuff until a month later. And so you'd hear about these huge matches going on, at the Army, and they talk about these other places, in Greensboro, and this, and you just sort of wondered, my goodness, what was going on, what would happen, and then of course, them talking about this big match, and after a while, they didn't, it wasn't like today. The title didn't change hands, to 15, 20 guys over the years. I mean, gosh, one guy had it, and after a while, you just sort of got used to the fact that, okay, well, no, but this guy's not going to win it. And then I can remember, again, that match being billed, and then the next week, Rick came out with the championship. It was like, oh my goodness! And now he was the man. And then that just gave credibility to everything that he said. You know what I mean? So now, I mean, it was, all his bad behavior that he encouraged on television just got rewarded. And so,
thank you.
I was too young to put it all together about what a bad road that would be to travel. but a 15-year-old kid, man, that was the coolest thing in the world.
Yeah, and you mentioned the name. Don't think I didn't take a little bit of my stuff from, obviously, the late, great Ali, but I got a lot of stuff from Joe Namath. That was just a couple years ahead of me. As a matter of fact, I'm going to see him. I've gotten to be around him 3 times, and it'll be a 4th time, August 5th. I'm going to a show with him. And God, what a great guy! He's too much. Yeah. I know he's got to lay low, but he's still a lot of fun to be with. Boy, but you just see him walk in a room. You go to yourself, even though he wears these glasses now because his eyesight's bad, and the lenses are pretty thick. You just say, Jesus, that's Joe Namath. I mean, there's some people that walk in a room and just, I don't care who you think you are, you just become a regular person, and he certainly was that to me.
I always loved this. I always loved the story you used to tell about it. It was like Buddy Rogers, right? When he came up, he said, what's the line he said to you?
Hey, kid, he called me over to Greensboro and said, hey, kid, there's only one diamond in this business, and you're looking at him.
And you're looking at him, yeah.
You're looking at him, yeah.
That's what's, and so I guess it's just neat because, all these years later, Conrad, I mean, for me, so you talk about that match with the Rockers, and then, of course, there's X amount of years later, and, Rick and I have a match at, a pay-per-view in Houston where it's, whatever, we get together and we go through a table, but still we don't have a ton of time, we're not a big match, something they used to do together, and then, of course, you think like, that might be my only opportunity, and so, for me, it's a pretty amazing evolution, just like I'm sure it is for Rick. I mean, even Rick had his, I had my Ric Flair, and Rick had his somebody. I mean, Buddy Rogers, like he was talking about Joe Namath. And
actually, it was Ray Stevens. Ray Stevens.
Yeah.
Who you got to meet, but you met him way late in his career.
But Ray was still. I mean, but that's the thing. You watch him, and he was. You go back and you watch him and Pat. And
I know.
You can't imagine how ahead of their time they were.
So you have seen Ray work before when he was younger on tape?
Oh yeah.
Oh, I didn't know you had because that's hard footage to get. And if you haven't seen Ray Stevens, I'm saying this on the podcast, in the '60s, boy, you haven't lived. That kid was too much, man. Upside down, over, around, Jesus.
Yes. And I guess it's stuff that again that that you did, in the '80s, I did in the '90s, 2000, and they oohed and ahed then. And I'm just telling you, he was doing it in the '60s, and you have to really, you've got to take yourself out of the mindset you're in now, and you've got to put it in the '60s, and you go, oh my goodness, Ray was such a trailblazer, and so ahead of his time. It's staggering, and I don't think anybody. It's because again, the internet, this, that, everything wasn't around then. But I don't think I don't know anybody who knows anything about this line of work doesn't put Ray Stevens at the top of their list as far as guys who were the best that ever did this stuff.
Yeah. So, well, in going back, I think I've told you this, Conrad, but Ray would take the turnbuckle, hook his foot, fall back, then they'd throw Pat in. Pat would go over the top of Ray, hook his foot, and fall back on top of Ray. They're both laying there, hooked on the same turnbuckle. I mean, it was unreal. I mean, when I saw that, the first time I saw that, they're wrestling the Crusher and Bruiser in Minneapolis, I was out of my mind.
And if they needed to, they each could go all the way forward, hit their head on the post, fall back.
Exactly.
And be bleeding by the time they fell back.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I used to tell people, if I went down to the matches in Minneapolis, which I did when I was old enough to start driving, because my dad would take me once in a while, but once I could drive, if he didn't do that flip in the match, I was so damn mad. You know what I mean? Yeah. I can remember people said, well, why do you do that every night? I said, well, if it gave me that much pleasure, I know that people out there are digging it too. Nobody ever complained. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
And then, of course, then Shawn took it to another level, and then, I just so much to think about. But, I just so thrilled thinking about all our times together. And I do remember, because in Houston, our match was there to get Shawn in position to wrestle Randy, right? So they spent the whole day trying to figure out what to have Randy do. Right? So, which is,
and it was funny. You were just like, I want to go through a table. Just put me through a table. These table bumps, they seem to be the big thing everybody wants to do. So make sure you put me through a table. I'm like, okay, all right.
Let's do something everybody's doing. Jesus.
Yeah, it's funny because it's funny. I forgot about that. You're right, because everybody spent all day on how to, look at how's Randy going to come in, and then nobody even. So I mean, clearly, I think it was fun. I mean, it wasn't. The match was. The match was sort of a backdrop to trying to introduce, Randy to a storyline with me, and sometimes that's just that's just the position you got. You got to make the best of it. And, and again, it's all, nobody cares now because, heck, Rick and I got to have our matches at WrestleMania. But at that time, in Houston, man, we didn't know that moment was coming. And so you're like, oh man, here it is. I mean, what are the chances that I'm going to get another shot with Rick? And now I'm better at I'm now better at my job than I was the first time, and and he can still go. And now we're both in a position where we'd really like to, we know each other now. We love and respect each other, and are good friends. And now we'd really like to, build on that, on that match we had all those years ago. But the situation doesn't, it's right. It doesn't call for that. And then of course, it's sort of like, oh man, that sort of sucks. But again, that is not knowing the future and what the future would hold, of course. And again, to me, you can't beat what we eventually got an opportunity to do.
So Rick, kind of walk us through that retirement angle and how that all came about.
Let me just throw out one thing, and I'm sure Shawn has somebody on his mind, but I'm going back to he and I. I think the best match Shawn and I ever had was in Japan, in Tokyo. Besides for WrestleMania, which I've pointed out, I could still perform at a decent level, and they gave us like 30 minutes in Japan. It was the same night that Angle wrestled Undertaker. Remember?
Yeah, no, and what was that? That was some kind of big event over there, right? I can't even
in Japan. Yeah, they made TV. Yeah, it was a TV, but they gave us a lot of time, and I was at the clear cut, which is hard to get in Japan. Definitive. I was a heel. He was a babyface. I mean, and it was really good.
Yeah.
And the Japanese, I found out. I mean, because sometimes those guys are hard to work with. But in my experience, a couple times I got to work with Steamboat and Rick Martel over there, and man, they bought it because you can't have that kind of match. There's about 3 Japanese guys, Tenryu, Fujinami, and maybe. I'm having a hard. His name will come to me. That can wrestle our style, and will sell a little bit, Otherwise, you're just
right.
Yeah, I mean, it just was so hard when I first started going there. They wouldn't sell crap, And I thought, okay, so and if they didn't like me begging off, I said, guys, I ain't getting the suplex more than 300 times a night, okay? So I'm staying down and I'm begging off.
Yeah,
no.
Yeah, well, and also that match was also, again, you, if I recall correctly, you were full scale heel then. I was full scale, baby face, and so it was, there wasn't a lot of, it was a very good, good guy versus bad guy.
Yeah.
And also by that time everybody knew, the Shawn Rick story. Eventually, obviously, it'd be played up even bigger. But just because that is one of the huge advantages. Even to the power of the internet and all of the times we've worked with each other, that we've told that story enough times that even in a place as far away as Japan, they had come to appreciate the story and who we were as wrestlers, as workers then. And so that match, was an opportunity for us to go out there as, in front of the Japanese folks and, as two of the better wrestlers that the world's seen in a while. And that obviously made that one pretty top notch as well.
Yeah, I feel the same way. So go ahead, Conrad. I know you want to ask about the retirement, and
I just wanted to know who's
I'm very proud of, because I'll just start out by saying I think Shawn asked to work with me at the retirement. I would have never had an opportunity. They just said you're retiring. It wasn't like pick out who you want, and I think Shawn volunteered to wrestle me. And then, of course, the rest is history. It was probably the most fun angle I ever had, even though he called me Old Yeller and all that stuff. Could take you out behind the barn, Old Yeller. That was great. Columbia, South Carolina, it was tremendous.
Yeah, well, but of course, I asked. I said, look, I've got what I think is some really good material, but you guys let me know. Because, and one of the things that, look, Rick told me this story a long time ago, and I believe it to be true. And so, but, again, the business changes, and I'm just, and I don't know, I'm never sure where you should use it, where you shouldn't use it. Sometimes, you got to go against the grain and tradition and stuff like that for stuff to work. But I always remember you telling me that story about, who was it? Walked across the room and smacked him and said, "Oh, wahoo," you know what I mean? And I remember Rick telling me a story when back in the day when they used to just sit there and cut promos. And
when Wahoo smacked Greg Valentine. Yeah,
Valentine was sitting there cutting a promo. Back when they
called him a big fat Indian. Yeah.
Called him a big fat Indian. Walked over there, smacked him right in the face, and said, "Kids, fat don't draw money."
Yeah.
And yeah.
True story. I've seen it all, man.
Changed the promo.
Yeah. Well, the same thing happened with funny. I know Conrad knows the story. We're doing promos, same format, same bunch of guys, and I can't remember what Ole Anderson said about Jack Mulligan, but brother, if you thought that Wahoo slapped Greg Valentine, you should have seen what Mulligan did to Ole Anderson, man. He's still trying to find his ass in the bleachers. Good Lord.
Look, that's something, you told me that story years ago, and I can, like, you know what? But there are some things, and then, it dawned on me one time. Look, if somebody said, I was whatever. I mean, of course, whatever. I was getting up to whatever. I was 39 or 40, but I'm, wrestling somebody who's 25 or whatever, and he did the same thing. And of course, the first time you hear it, it stings a little bit, but then oh, the heck, I said it as a young guy. But then, I just said, look, I never, I never stopped anybody from cutting the promo. All I did was when he was done, I said, look, and I just want you to think about this because, and I told him the story that Rick told me, and I said, look, just something to think about is that always know where you're sort of going with this stuff. I said, because when everything's said and done, I said, ultimately in this angle, you know what I mean? Because I'm going on to work with so-and-so, I'm going over. So you sit there, you're going to call me an old man, and that's fine, and I don't mind. But you got to understand, I'm going to kick you and I'm beating you. You know what I mean? So when you always know where you're going because you're about to get beat by an old man.
Yeah, and the thing of it is, if you think about it, that is, if you can't find better material than you're an old man, you're not much on the stick anyway. Does that make sense? I mean, I'm talking about just in a random interview.
Right, and that is, like I said, that is why I asked you about it, because I didn't want it to be. It wasn't old. Wasn't the stress. It wasn't.
No, but it was great. I wasn't saying it because I was upset. I loved it.
No. Oh yeah, no. I know, but I'm just saying. But I think it's just. Well, again, to me, this speaks to, the simplistic psychology as opposed to what I think is good psychology, which I always felt like I've had, which is it wasn't about being old. It was about the fact that, somebody that loved that dog, because they loved him so much, he had to get back behind the shed and kill him. And that's what it was. It was a mercy killing, and that was the difference. So, for me, all the old Yeller stuff in that promo was more about, love, which again, I always go back and I always tell people, look, I mean, you have to understand that the retirement match with Rick, I said, people always look at me like I got, two heads because they don't understand that for me, it was a love story. You know what I mean? And they always look at me like, oh my goodness, this guy's just out for lunch, for God's sakes. But, I told the story about how I woke up in the middle of the night and I started writing it down and I just started weeping on the paper. And again, so that's where, even the promos going up to it, and the old Yeller stuff. Again, it was about, someone being put into a position that they did not envy, and they were going to have to do something and put it into something that they didn't want to put it into. And the reason they didn't want to put it into it is because that person, that everything about that meant so much to them. And again, that's the conflict that HBK and the character was going through in the whole storyline with Rick, and that's what made it so for me enjoyable to do. Because, and especially if you knew, like Rick stated earlier, they didn't give him a choice. They said, "Look, you're retired. That's that." Well, no, but it did bother him, and so the weeks going up to it and stuff like that, he was emotional, and again, so. All of that whole thing.
Yeah, it was very real.
Took on such a realism, that it was just, and it was hard not to get caught up in it. And of course, when I get, when that kind of stuff and that kind of emotion starts to, to happen, see, for me, I don't fight it. Because, I mean, to me, if you don't resist it, it helps it. The more you get into it, the more you, become part of it. Dude, it just works better. You know what I mean? And again, that's why to this day, there are a bunch of dudes who think they're big, bad, rough, and tough. But every one of them will look at you and go, dude, I cried when you looked at Rick and told him you loved him. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, everybody did, yeah. Including me.
Yeah, no, but, and me too. But that was the point of all of that, was to tap in to something so much bigger, in all of us. And it was, everything about that match was to tap into the 15-year-old boy in every person that's ever watched a wrestling match. You know what I mean? And so, and again, that's something I feel like we did, and that's why that will always be one of my most, proudest, most memorable moments ever, because it's where, it was the culmination of, of everything that you loved about pro wrestling. Manifesting itself in a wrestling match at WrestleMania.
Yeah, well,
Shawn,
for me, it was. If you think about it, I was 59 years old. Sometimes I look back and say I couldn't have possibly been 50. I was 59 years old in 2008, and but I was still in decent shape. I mean, I certainly had some cosmetic issues, but as far as working out, I was in good shape. Not saying I was the cosmetic cover of Muscle and Fitness or anything, but I could still walk around without wearing my shirt. And so, and then to go out there in front of 78,000 people, and I've told this story 1,000 times, but I got to do it again. First of all, when we went around with Michael Hayes was our agent, and we went and talked and sat down and whatever. He started the first day we got there in Orlando. He said, listen, you're going to do something you've never done in your life. You're just going to keep your mouth shut and listen to this. She said to me. I mean, Conrad, he was serious. You just keep your mouth shut. Listen to this. I put a lot of thought and time into this. I didn't fly over here from Texas to have you give me shit. This is what we're doing, and this is it. And then, I'm telling you, we're standing there in Gorilla, and he's jumping around, and I'm going, he goes, Dave, listen, remember what I told you? Just keep your mouth shut. Let's do it. And out the door he goes. I started crying right there before I got in the ramp. They got out of Tuesday. On Tuesday, they're like, let's say we got there Wednesday. He said, you just keep your mouth shut this week. Do something you've never been able to do. Just shut up and listen. Learn this and get it down. This is what we're doing. And I did forget a couple of things. But he told me in the ring. He said, "Hey, A, B, C, D, dumbass. you just missed B." I'll tell you, it's great. But the thing that
I was so wired for sound, though. I mean, I knew exactly this. I've never been so sure of anything in my life. I knew if we do this is going to be epic.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So, and I was.
That was tremendous.
I knew it was going to be off the chart.
But I'll tell you something, Conrad, and I think I've told you this, Conrad, but Shawn knows this too. It's like you never know. You think, oh my God, and you're so wrapped up in the emotion. But when you walk back through that curtain and in the Gorilla, and everybody is going crazy, that something good has come down. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, there was a time in my life, and I'm sure Shawn still feels that way now. I mean, I've had, as I thought Shawn was going to address earlier, I've had some times where I was very insecure as I got older because people kept telling me I was old. And I don't have to go down the memory lane with that, but it made me insecure, and it made me insecure about my ability, even though I could still really perform the age where it hit me so many times from so many different angles. So, but it didn't even, but I came through that curtain, and I know Shawn walked back there saying, man, this was great. You know what I mean? But I've had so many people over the years tell me it was great, but I didn't know if it was good or bad. I mean, I knew it was highly emotional. I knew the crowd was into it huge. I knew that Shawn had performed like nobody else, but to walk back through that curtain, and you had to be there, Conrad, to understand that the whole company was there waiting for us. Not just the guys, the technical people, the whole company was lined up the whole length of the hallway. Remember, Shawn?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I went, God, I guess it all worked out right. And then Shawn pulls me aside. He says, before you get busy with your family, I want to talk to you for a minute. So I thought, he's either going to tell me what I didn't do right. I didn't know what he was going to say. He says, come here. We went back there, and he opens up his bag and takes out 2 green boxes with Rolex on them, and says, here, I want you to have this. This is for me. And hence the Rolex stories. I mean, unbelievable. A $65,000 watch. Well, Conrad, you've seen it.
Yeah.
Shawn had the same one.
Shawn, tell us about that. How did it come about?
Shawn did that. Oh. I didn't ask for it. I would have.
No, you know what? I mean, it was something when I knew I knew probably, I guess, at least a month in advance that we were going to have this match. And I, it was important to me. I mean, this was look, I've taken all of my WrestleMania matches seriously. I'd probably take one. I'm guilty of taking one. Majority of my wrestling matches way too serious. Then I take my Raw matches too serious, and then my pay-per-view matches even more serious, and then my WrestleMania matches way, probably unhealthily too serious. and then of course I took this one with Rick. It was important to me, and so I wanted to know how how this would be special. And then of course again it went back to me being 15, and I just thought, what I'd like to do is us to have matching Rolexes. let us, I want to be the limousine riding, Rolex wearing, wheeling, dealing, just the son of a gun just one time with him. And, so, and I wanted to get him done a certain way and something that would be memorable, that we'd remember forever and engrave something on him. And so, I went to these jewelers that I know pretty well and asked them if they could look, this is what I'm thinking about doing, and can you get this done? The only thing they couldn't get done, that's why we have the 24 on there. I was going to do it in the Roman numerals, and there just isn't enough room. You know what I mean?
Yeah, you told me.
Yeah, to do it, that it would be, sort of legible, that you could see it. And so, we got it done, and like I said, then it was a matter of, how do I give them to them? And, I didn't know, obviously, I just figured we'd do it when it came back, but then, you come back, and of course, everybody's back there, and again, it was an emotional night for him. I knew it was going to be a long night for him, and then so I need just 5 minutes of your time, and I wanted to, express to him what, not just the match meant to me, but what, he's meant to me, certainly professionally over the years. And then, of course, on top of that, to have grown into, having a real friendship, a real life friendship with this guy that, you used to just sit there and watch on TV.
Conrad, my official role was the last 2 years there, right? With Shawn.
No.
You know what it was, right?
No.
Order room service 411. Making sure within his room. Oh yeah, he'd go, Nate's room service. Yeah, what do you want? I'll take a double chicken Caesar, 2 shrimp cocktails, a plate. My job was to call the hotel because he was always on last if I wasn't with him. Call the hotel, have room service delivered, put in his room by the time he got back. Oh, yeah. I'm here, Nate. I got it, thanks.
and so the Rolex was just a tip for all those room service orders.
Yeah, I couldn't. That was funny. I mean, it got to be a joke. I'd say I'd walk around like a TV with a pen and paper and say, "Should I take your order now?" He said, "Let me think about it." So much fun, man. God darn.
Oh yeah,
Rick. After that story and just kind of walking through memory lane of 2008. Do you regret wrestling again after that match? I mean, in a perfect world, would you have wrestled again?
Yes, I do. There's a couple things I regret. Number one was ever going to work for TNA. And not that's my own fault or mistake. It was just a lot of money to make very easily to wrestle 65 days a year, right? 65 days and make a lot of money. I mean, not WWE money, but really good money to do nothing. And I made a lot of friends. I liked Kurt Angle very much, and I liked Storm and Rude, and I liked AJ. And I mean, it was fun, but the problem is, I've said 100 times that after you work in a WWE, you just have to. It just can't be subpar in terms of the way they run the show. That makes sense. You just can't have. Yeah. 7. I mean, not that it doesn't happen, and it has happened. It happens now a lot, I think, because of confusion and like they're micromanaging now. I think more. I think that Vince delegates a little bit more authority now because he has Hunter, working a lot more and wrestling less. He has Michael Hayes and Arn and some good people, but still, Vince likes to see everything that's going on, and that's just the way it is. And there at TNA, you couldn't do nothing until Hulk and Bischoff and those guys got there, and if we started shooting at 6, it was easy. I mean, you shoot 2 hours in the summertime, and then an hour and a half, 2 hours at night, 7 to 9. It's all tape, but you're never quite sure what you're doing, and it just was so dysfunctional. And I really like Bruce Pritchard, but they called me one day to go somewhere, and in my contract, I had a 72-hour notice. They wanted me to go somewhere. It wasn't even advertised. And I just said, I can't do it anymore. And that was the end of the story. But I mean, everybody treated me great. I don't have any bad things to say about TNA or the people there at all. I couldn't. After you've been in the WWE, it's very hard to work anyplace else because you're always comparing. No matter how hard you try not to, you're comparing. And one of the things I'm so glad is that Sting finally got to see what the WWE is like. I mean, he went from WCW to TNA, and he was there a long, long time. But he finally got to come and hang around and see the guys, and got to meet everybody. And he was at house shows, not house shows, but at TVs and at pay-per-views, and he got to see the difference, which I think is something he'll remember. And I'm so happy he finally got to do that before he retired. It's just, there's no experience like it. I mean, I've had offers to do other stuff, but I mean, not now, but when when I got done. But yeah, I don't regret the opportunity to make the money. And I did miss the business. I tell you, and my hat's off to Shawn because he's able to do it. But it's just taken me up till maybe 2 years ago where I just don't. I still. I mean, after all these years, I miss the camaraderie. I can go to TV now, and I'm friends with all those guys, and I'm 40 years older than some of them. Does that make sense? But I mean, like Ziggler and all those kids, I love those guys. You know what I mean? And they love to have me tell the stories. And I mean, it's like when Shawn and we all get together, and Hunter, if you ever has time, at WrestleMania, and we sit down. And man, you can see the room. Everybody's just looking at us, listening to our stories, and how much fun we had. We did business. When Hunter was actively wrestling all the time, and we would go to Europe, it was just such a great time, and sold out every night, 20,000 people, and like Shawn said, they would spend 5 minutes or 10 minutes just reviewing my medical history tick-wise for 20,000 people. It was insanity. I mean, how easy was that? I mean, I keep thinking back to those matches. I mean, God, I probably only got to wrestle Shawn maybe 10 times in single matches in my life, but I was in a ton of tag matches against him or with him, and which were a lot of fun too. So I mean, just the experience, and then the closeness of the right before I retired with Shawn, I had that angle with Hunter, which was great. Where he slammed my head in the car door, and then we had the cage match in San Diego, and then the I Quit match in Detroit or whatever it was, something like that. And I mean, that was a big deal for me too. Then I got to wrestle Foley at SummerSlam, and then we're winding down, and Vince just called me one day and said, we're going to induct you in the Hall of Fame, and you're going to work the next day with Shawn, and we're going to say goodbye, and we're going to do something really nice for you. And I say this to this day. I've been to a lot of different stuff. I'm going to Cooperstown this weekend for baseball. I've been to Canton to see guys, and my friend Kevin Green is going in this year from the Panthers and the Rams, and more years of the Steelers. But I thought my retirement and the whole weekend and the emotion of it was, just something that I'll never experience, and I hope somebody else has that opportunity. But it was such a wonderful opportunity, And I mean, the thing was, I can remember every year, I just looked forward to seeing Shawn's mom and dad walk through the door. They'd say, "Where's Shawn?" And I'd say, "We're rehearsing," and it just. WrestleMania is just like a family thing. Does that make sense? Do you agree with that, Shawn?
For sure. Oh yeah.
Yeah, especially when you're retired. I mean, I don't know. I can remember when Shawn would bring Cameron when Shawn first came back, and he'd be rolling around the ring with Cameron. I mean, those are things, and you're rolling around, and what does the little kid think? Any little boy, right? 20,000 seat empty arena, and you're rolling around with your dad, and your dad's Shawn Michaels. I mean, tell me about it. It's a pretty cool deal. And I want to say something that's a very positive thing. It's ultimately it caught up with him, but my son idolized Shawn, and there was nobody in the world like Shawn Michaels. I can remember I tell this story all the time. I came home one day and he said, "Can you do a moonsault?" I said, "What? If I can do a moonsault, why? What?" He said, "Well, Shawn Michaels can do a moonsault." I wanted to go over to Ash's gymnast and put the harness on and start practicing. I was so damn mad at him. But he would he would follow Shawn around, and Shawn, would give him the scoop and talk to him about his issues. So I made Shawn aware of it, as Hunter was, and he'd sit there listening and be the politest, nicest young man in the world, but he just couldn't beat it. And it wasn't because he didn't have enough people, supporting him. And he loved this business, boy, like nothing else. So, I want to thank Shawn for that. And I've never said that publicly, but I do appreciate all the kind words. And he was like the third guy to call me. So, we're close, and we will be forever. I really appreciate it, Shawn.
You bet.
Well, go ahead, ask him something controversial.
Well, listen, as close as you guys are, I think the obvious question, since, Shawn, you talked about growing up on WTBS, and then we talked about Sting being kind of the last WCW holdout to come over. You were kind of the guy who never went to WCW despite all your buddies going and Rick being there. Did any serious talks ever happen about you going to WCW, or was that just never an option?
No, not really. Well, again, it's one of those things where I guess you talk about it, your fans, but really, legally and contractually, no. I mean, I could never go. And then even when
and he's also very loyal to Vince.
Yeah, I mean, it was just one of those things that you can in the theater of your mind you can, I don't know, fantasize about it, think about it, wonder what it'd be like. But ultimately, I think I've always felt like, I was a WWE guy, and I honestly didn't want to be anywhere else. And the only reason you'd ever go anywhere else is for money. And the thing is, I just could never, as badly as everybody, I guess, feels like I'm a sellout for one thing or another. I guess, ultimately, when it came to wrestling, I mean, I wanted to wrestle where I wanted to wrestle, and it had, something had to be bigger and more important than the money. And for me, it was that time inside that ring. That was the one place. Again, it's getting as I am with everything that is, I guess the wrestling process. It was always the place that I felt like, had the most freedom. It's the only real, I guess, control one, that I had in my life. It was the one place where, I could sort of make things happen if someone would listen and everybody would do, I guess, sort of what I wanted them to do. I mean, things could go perfect. And when things went perfect, you'd get an awesome response, and it's a great feeling. So it's that, it's the only, I guess, place where, again, that I felt like you could have this unbelievably, freeing and liberating euphoria, I guess, that, and I just don't think I could have got that anywhere else. I don't think anyone else would have allowed me, and I don't think anybody else understood, my creativity and my desire to be able to wrestle and put together matches and do things in the ring that I wanted to do, and try things that I wanted to try. I don't think, I don't know that someone else would have allowed me that kind of freedom to I don't know, to test the limits, to push the limits, to I don't know, see what else you could creatively get away with, like Vince and the folks at the WWE did. They were always pretty darn understanding when I wanted to do things a certain way. And I don't know, it's hard to put a price on that. You know what I mean? It really is, especially when you enjoy that time. And again, when you took it again, as serious as I did, I don't know, I couldn't imagine, again, being at like a WCW, I guess, their WrestleMania would be what, Rick Starrcade, I guess,
Well, number one, it was, and I've said this 1,000 times. I've never said to Shawn because it never came up, but you would have never, the chemistry wouldn't have worked for you.
Yeah.
It's because
I just couldn't imagine being at the biggest show of the year, on pay-per-view or whatever, and somebody like telling me when I had put this match together that my version of a WrestleMania match, and then someone came and said, "No, you know what? We don't want you doing that because this guy's going to do that or this guy's going to do that." You just don't understand how much that wouldn't go. How much that wouldn't fly. You know what I mean? I mean,
I just know. Down there it was divide and conquer. It was Scott and Shawn and Kevin, and then it was Randy and Hulk, and then it was Sting and Luger, and then it was what was left of it, me and Arn. But that was like Arn and I had nothing to say about anything. You know what I mean? We were just trying to figure out how to get to the bar.
Again, I guess. Yeah. Well, I mean, and like I said, I don't. I mean, I've been around like that kind of stuff. Again, I get the politicking and junk like that, but I guess it's just, again, when it comes to, again, the time in the ring, and especially big show of the year, or again, a wrestling match, when ultimately it's about just having a great match. If somebody just, for whatever reason, I don't know and I don't care, for whatever reason, just said, well, you can't do this because whatever. And if I had freely just, in my mind, I feel like, no, this is the best way to have this match. This match is going to be phenomenal, start to finish. And then someone says, well, yeah, but you can't do this. Again, I don't know. I mean, if you took one cog out of my wheel, to me, the entire thing crumbles, and it's not the same match. You know what I mean? And therefore, if it's not the same match, it's not going to get the same response. You know what I mean? I just couldn't imagine somebody putting some kind of parameter or some kind of stipulation on something I did. And that's, again, I don't think anybody really can appreciate, again, the fact that the WWE, I can't remember a time when they ever really did that to me. You know what I mean? And again, that's the only thing I think I probably ever technically demanded.
Well,
I mean, was
let me pay another compliment.
The match I wanted to put together.
Yeah, well, let me pay another compliment. It's like when I first got there, and man, I had some terrible matches with the Warrior. I'm the first one. I mean, I can remember the times I was in Toronto one night and I'm wrestling the Warrior, and I just couldn't work with him. I tried, and I don't blame him. I just either I didn't have the ability or we didn't have the chemistry. But Pat Patterson says to me, "That's the worst match I've ever seen in my life." And I said, "You're telling me I was in it?" Christ. But here's the deal: when I first got there to make me the champion, and they go to me, we don't. Nobody wrestles 15 minutes, right? It's 10 minutes, right? And I go, I can't wrestle 10 minutes in a match, 15. That's not the way I'm built, right? And that's what Pat and all those guys, they built it around Hulk and the Warrior and the champion going on fourth and then going home instead of being on last. Well, sure enough, 3 years later, the word was out. Shawn Michaels was the champion, wrestling 30 and 40 minutes every night and selling out. I mean, but you were bucking the system originally because I just had this mindset that you were going to wrestle 15 minutes, and that worked for Hulk, and it worked for the Warrior, but it didn't work for me and Shawn. Shawn can't tell him that. I mean, you can do something in 10 minutes, but number one, as the world champion, you want to give the people more than anyway. You want to show them how good you are. But would you agree with that, Shawn?
Yeah, well, no, but certainly, yes, as world champion, you feel, well, and the thing is, I guess, I never, I mean, having to go out there longer than 15 minutes didn't seem like a lot of work to me. I wanted to be out there longer than that.
We all did. Christ.
Yeah, exactly.
You're just getting the crowd warmed up.
Yeah, I mean, I was in no hurry to go on early and no hurry to get back to the room. You know what I mean? And so, but yes, I mean, so, to a long-winded answer, I guess, to answer, no, I mean, I never, and heck, Vince said that to me once. He said, look, I mean, well, even when all the WCW stuff did come up, and I did ask him, like, oh, geez, let me go. You know, he said, point blank, he said, you wouldn't be happy down there. He said, Shawn, he goes, they wouldn't let you be you. He said, they'd smother you down there. He said, you know, you'd suffocate. You'd never make it. You know what I mean? And
it's the truth. I'll tell you.
And the thing is, well, and the thing is, but that was the day when I realized, you know, again, he gets me. You know what I mean? And that's what people never. Again, there's people have made up, and again, because it's easier to make up the more wild stories than to grasp the fact that, you know, the boss of the company knew what made me tick. You know, what really, you know, made me happy was going in there and being in the ring and doing, you know, doing special stuff in there. And you know, and yes, even those years I was a big pain on the backside. Hey, he's a smart man. He's a businessman. It's like, hey, you know, if we get him in the ring, though, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You know, so we just, you know, let's just
make
sure we get into the ring.
I got to tell another great Shawn Michaels story, because I tell people all the time now that Shawn Michaels would kill everybody in the dressing room. So, Conrad, you've seen where the guys sit and when the arena's empty out there, and like we'd all sit out there, Army, Shawn, whoever, feet up on the table, but the announce table. You know, while the people are putting together matches and that, right, Shawn? And I'd be dipping. Thanks, Shawn, by the way. I'm finally off it. But somebody walked up to Shawn. I can't remember who the agent was, and said, Umaga wants you with the super kick. And I said, okay. Shawn said, fuck no. Excuse my language. No. and that was it. No explanation needed. Just no. Now, you've got 8 matches with 10 super kicks in each match. Are you kidding me? Oh, my God. Watching it there. I know, but I go to people. I mean, Shawn Michaels, I sit with Pat a lot because Pat, you know, likes to talk and tell stories with me. I said, Pat, Shawn Michaels for dies as you're watching these matches. I mean, you can't. Shawn, you've seen it. There's 10 super kicks in some of these tag matches. Christ.
Yeah, that's what I hear. That's what everybody says.
Oh, you got to see it.
So, Shawn, the WWE has done some crazy things over the course of your career, but I can't think of anything crazier than when Vince and Shane wrestled you and God. How did you feel about Vince beating God in that whole crazy situation?
Yeah, well, you know, I mean, I thought it was funny. I mean, it was so over the top and so silly. I don't know. It's funny. Years later, I can remember Hunter. I guess not years, but I mean like months and. You know, a year later, I remember Hunter coming to me and goes, dude, he goes, we didn't think in a million years you would do that. And he goes, we really thought you'd be all hurt and uptight about it. I said, dude, what do I care? I mean, it's silly. It's one of the things, I guess, like I've always got, you know, back in the 90s, everybody took it as disrespect. Everybody felt like I didn't, you know, and I keep believing now, too, like I don't respect the business enough. Look, the business is real, okay? And that's one of the things. I've always got that. I've got that from the day that I got into it. And so there's only a certain amount of it. He said, the part inside the ropes, part that sort of people decide it's either a good match or it's a bad match. That's the part that I take very, 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 very seriously and that I respect the most. All the other stuff, though, it's just window dressing and silliness. And so none of that stuff bothers me. And so I don't know. You know, it wasn't the most intellectually stimulating, you know, angle or storyline that we've ever done in the WWE. But you know, look, we use my personal life. You know, we've used a lot of guys' personal lives and real lives and stuff like that to fill out the storylines. Mine's no different. You know, again, I don't know that it was, you know. Honestly, I don't know that it was one of the best, you know, by any stretch that we've done. But it also wasn't one of the worst. It was just, you know, another in a run of many sort of over the top, maybe too overdone storylines in WWE lore.
Yeah, and there's a lot of them. And believe me, I sit back and look at it now. It requires to compete in the television industry today with all the stuff going on out there, and I think and to do 3 hours of live TV, and you know it's a nightmare. I've actually been on location
Well, heck,
of the Malacha.
you know what? It's like a good actor with a with I guess maybe not a bad script or not a great movie. Heck, you do your best. You're still thrilled to,
Exactly.
Still, you know what I mean? Hey, I'm still in a Hollywood blockbuster. It just didn't do as good at the box office as everybody hoped. But but I am still making movies for a living. So I mean, it's certainly. I guess I might be a smidge bothered if my entire career was, one bad storyline after another. But the fact that, I'll be the first one to admit I did not homer every time at the plates.
Well, talking about bad stories,
I'd have, but you batted like 945 to 950.
Yeah, well, I feel like at least I've got got Hall of Fame numbers.
Listen, you're the greatest in-ring performer in the history of the business. The greatest wrestler of all time.
The greatest out of the ring. That's the thing. Apparently, it's the in-ring thing that I don't get. Where else would I be wrestling?
Now, this is the Shawn Michaels that I like. Why can't it be the greatest at everything, period?
Well, no, not at everything. Just at the wrestling part, inside the ring.
Yeah, yeah. That's why I changed it to the greatest wrestler. Yeah, forget inside the ring, okay?
Yeah.
Hey, listen, we have kept you forever, and I can't thank you enough from the bottom of my heart. I mean, there's so many, we could talk for hours, but from WrestleMania to you being so thoughtful about my son, to my Rolex, which I wear everywhere, and I tell this story a lot. I've told Shawn this after WrestleMania. I got in the plane to fly home, and the guy said, "Are you a Jeff Gordon fan?" I said, "What are you talking about?" He said, "Number 24 on your watch." You should have heard that promo. Apparently you weren't in Orlando over the weekend, buddy.
Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, are you a Jeff Gordon fan? Oh yeah. Hello. I was still. Well, listen, I got to get you on another time because I want you to tell the nation story sometime, and I want you to tell the story about buying the Rolex, beating Bret Hart to the punch in Israel.
Oh my goodness! Yeah,
for the gold Rolex. There's so many good stories.
Punch bowl.
We got to tell the nation story. That's the best story I've ever heard. Do you have time to tell us the nation story?
Yeah, you can do that. Do you mind, Shawn?
Okay, yeah. No, you got
when your dad was going over your expenses.
Oh yeah. So anyway, all right. So, and I don't know where we were coming from, but it's obviously it's the clique. It's me, Nash, Hall, Waltman, and Hunter. We're flying in from somewhere, and we're going into New York. And for whatever reason, I said, you know what? Tonight we need to. We had done like an afternoon shot. So we were coming in the evening. We had the evening to ourselves, and we flew into LaGuardia. I said, "You know what, boys? I'm going to go ahead and nate you tonight." So jumped all this many years ago, many years ago. And I jumped in a limo, and I took us down to a gentleman's club down in Manhattan. And all of us, we had shrimp cocktails, filet mignon, and we just, let's just say, I mean, I unloaded a lot of money down there at the Gentleman's Club on myself and my buddies.
I remember the figure. Can I say it?
Sure.
$10,000.
Yeah.
So then Shawn tells me that a week later he gets a call from his dad.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, it's funny because it's we go to TV and so it's a month later. It's a month later now. I mean, it's fun as it was, but it's forgotten because the world is the world, the road is the road, and you're on to do different, bigger, better things. All of a sudden, I get a call from my dad. And the colonel says, "Son," he goes, look, I don't, you're a grown man, and what you do is your business. But as you know, look, I mean, and my father took care of my, I've always, at a certain point in my career, my brother said, you know what, Shawn, both my brothers, he said, look, you're just working. You want to send all your checks to Dad, let him handle your money, and you just like live on allowance, man. He goes, and by the time you get Dad's age, man, you're gonna be okay. And so anyway, my father was handling a lot of my finances at that time, and I was just living on a budget, and I was just working and saving. So anyway, but that's just so we have a little reason why my father was calling me. He said, "Look, Sonny, just wanted to let you know I'm here going over the bills and your expenses and whatnot. You've got there's a $10,000 bill one night at a place in New York at a Scores." I'm just checking, and I said, "Well, Dad," I said, "Look, we've been on the road with my buddies, and I just felt like one night I just wanted to be the big deal. I went ahead and wanted to go ahead and make it for just one night.
Yes,
just say that I did it.
Hey, just drop the heat rate on me."
I proceeded to tell my dad everything that we did. And he said, "Son," he goes, it's just something I won't discuss with your mother. We'll keep it between the two of us. But I certainly understand," he said, "but if I wouldn't make a habit out of it, because if you keep nature, you're going to be doing this stuff for a long, long time."
Yeah. Hence the nature boy doing it for a long, long time.
Oh, my goodness.
And now we do a podcast.
I love you, man. Hey, one Harley Race impression. Now we're gone.
Really good. All right. Let me see if I can think of. I think one of the best ones is. So, Mr. Race, I'm working with you tonight, and they want me to come here and set up a match with you. And that's the thing; you can't do very well, because I don't have.
Well, I'll be Kurt Hennig. You're talking about Kurt Hennig, right?
Yeah, well, Kurt.
Yeah. I'll be Kurt. I'll be Kurt, and you be Harley. Hey, Mr. Race, can we set up the match for tonight?
What's your finish?
Drop kick off the top rope.
I'll move.
Thank you, sir. I love you.
Oh, my God. I love you guys.
And you are the greatest wrestler of all time, not just in ring. The greatest.
Don't you forget it, Flair.
I won't forget it. And quit dropping Tully Blanchard's name around, please. Jesus.
Oh, my goodness. Oh, that hurt you, didn't it?
That was major heat.
Every day, last 2 weeks.
I love you, man. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Conrad. Thanks,
man. Bud. All right, that's going to do it for us this week on the Ric Flair Show. I appreciate you tuning in to this Best Of edition. And how fitting is it for our Best Of? We have the two very best professional wrestlers of all time, Ric Flair and Shawn Michaels, catching up in what will probably be the most in-depth podcast they'll ever do together. So much so that we had to break it up. But this week, they went Broadway on this Best Of edition. We'll be back next week with a brand new show. Nature Boy will be back in business. If you've had food poisoning before, you know how miserable that can be. I'm sure he'd love to hear your well wishes on social media, or you could just see him in person this weekend on Friday and Saturday. He's going to be at the Rhode Island Comic Con at the Rhode Island Convention Center right there in Providence, Rhode Island. Come see the Nature Boy this weekend, Friday and Saturday. He'll be back in business. And next week, right here on the Ric Flair Show, don't forget, we're giving away a world title signed by the Nature Boy. It's a replica belt of his WCW title, the one like Vader wore, like Luger wore, like Sting wore, like Ron Simmons wore. It's one of the more famous belts from WCW's history, and the Nature Boy has autographed it specifically for us, and we're going to give it away here next week on the Ric Flair Show. All you need to do to enter, let's recap again, subscribe to the show, leave us a 5-star review, and then post a screenshot and use hashtag Ric Flair Show. And this time next week, we'll have a brand new world champ and a brand new show on the Ric Flair Show. We'll see you next week.
This is the MLW Radio Network.
Oh, look, it's a postcard from Stephen Lou.
That's nice.
Having a wonderful time in Ibiza, very hot, wish you were here. And Merry Christmas to you both and have a Happy New Year. And happy birthday, Mike. Best wishes. Best of luck to Jimmy for his A-levels. And if you get poorly, get well soon. All the best, SNL.
Like getting your money's worth? Well, discover the new delicious barbecue chicken BLC with Beechwood smoked bacon. Just $1.49 from the McDonald's Saver menu. From 10:30 a.m. Price of participation may vary.